Hello, and welcome to Burnett Avenue Baptist Church, where Reverend Daniel Corey Scholl is our pastor, and we affirm that Jesus makes life better.
Rockin' Jerusalem, church getting higher. Ringing them bells, church getting higher. Rockin' Jerusalem, church getting higher. Ringing them bells. Oh Mary, oh Martha, oh Mary, ring them bells. Oh Mary, oh Martha, oh Mary, ring them bells. Turn Jerusalem, 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 oh, ringing them bells, Jerusalem, 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 oh, ringing them bells. New Jerusalem, rocking Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, ringing them bells, rocking Jerusalem. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great happening in the promised land. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great happening in the promised land. One of these mornings it won't be long. There's a great happening in the promised land. Look for me. There's a great happening in the promised land. Going to glory to sing and shout. There's a great happening in the promised land. Another big party to keep me out. There's a great happening in the promised land. So walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great happening in the promised land. So walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. One of these mornings and it won't be long. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. They're gonna look for me and I'll be gone. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Going to glory to sing and shout. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. And there'll be nobody to turn me out. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. So walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. So walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk
This morning, we want to anchor ourselves in John 3:16. John 3:16 is a passage that is really a rudder for we who are people of faith. If you don't know this passage by heart, if you can't state it by memory, by next Sunday, I hope just recite it every day, every morning, every evening, because this is a passage that you need to know whenever someone challenges you concerning the faith that you hold. This is a key text that you need to be able to cite by heart. And whenever you begin to question your own salvation, this is a passage that you ought to call to memory. Let's read it together. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Amen. You may be seated in the presence of God. I want to talk about atheism this morning. I want to label the message, No God of My Own. No God of My Own. Dazzling the literary palates of urban millennials and cultural critics alike over the past 6 months has been a person by the name of Ta-Nehisi Coates. Heretofore, he has enjoyed prestige as a journalist for The Atlantic, but here in the past 6 months, he has enjoyed an even higher profile of being a New York Times best-selling author with his publication of my favorite book of 2015, which is entitled Between the World and Me. That book is published as a letter to his son on the night following the acquittal of Darren Wilson in the murder of Mike Brown. And in that book, in that letter to his son, in that open communication with his seed, he seeks to explain to his son the historic terrorism that has been wrought on the black body in the Western world, especially in the United States of America. In order to press the potency of his points, he begins to recount the experiences that have been most formative for him, growing up in a household with parents who instilled in him a sense of cultural pride, being reared on the streets of an urban city where drugs and gangs and political corruption haunted the streets of his city like cicadas in a southern city. He recited his experiences of matriculating through Howard University and concurrently his explorations on the famed U Street. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., you know something about U Street. And on U Street, he had conversations with a variety of people whom all had a variety of cultural experiences, but strangely all shared a similar conviction about the things of faith. They all shared a similar commitment to the sacred. And it was there in the confluence of living in that cultural environment that Coates realized that he was missing one element that had been central to the black experience. That though faith and religion had helped African Americans navigate a society that was designed to destroy him, faith was something, or belief in God was something that Coates just couldn't quite embrace. Listen to Coates' own words. He said, I don't have any gospel of my own. Post-war and the early pages of Bloodlands have revealed a truth to me. I am an atheist. I have recently realized this. I don't believe that the arc of the universe bends toward justice. I don't believe in an arc. I believe in chaos. I am also a cynic. I think that those of us who reject divinity, who understand that there is no order, there is no arc, that we are night travelers on a great tundra, that stars can't guide us, will understand that the only work that will matter will be the work done by us, or perhaps not. Maybe the very myths that I decry are necessary for that work. I don't know. But history is a brawny refutation for that religion brings morality. Coates offers an intriguing perspective, a perspective that is becoming ever more popular as those who reject the concept or the idea or the reality of God become more vocal. In fact, according to Barna Research Group, 1 in 4 American adults classify as either atheist or agnostic. Although America has historically been considered a Christian nation, the reality, brothers and sisters, is atheism is all around us. Atheists are those who simply believe that there is no God. They refute the principle that there is a superintending deity who rules and superrules the world. Atheists say there is no God. And the reality is that they place their points of emphasis in three distinct places where I feel that we need to give strict attention to on this morning as we seek to understand and minister to atheists. Atheists, in the first place, reject the existence of God based on the principle, on the reality of evil. The argument goes that because there is evil in the world, there must mean that there is not a God who exists. And if God does exist, he cannot be a good God, because a good God would not allow the world to be contaminated by evil and suffering. It's a plausible point. It's a point that must be pondered. Why would a good God allow evil? Why would a good God allow war? Why would a good God allow Africans to be kidnapped from their native land, kidnapped to another place and forced into slavery for 400 years? Why would a good God allow the Jewish Holocaust to happen on his watch? Why would a good God allow cancer? Why would a good God allow war? If God is really good, then why is there so much evil in the world? It's an important question. But in the raising of that question, one has to be careful not to reduce God to a cosmic policeman. That is, though God created the heavens and the earth, that God, you cannot assume that God is necessarily the filter for all that is evil. And you've got to be careful when you talk about the evil that's in the world, not to reduce God to a cosmic policeman, but you've also got to be careful not to reduce how God has created humanity. For God has created humanity with free will. Say that with me, free will. Free will simply means that God gives us the freedom to be our own moral agents, so that you and I, we can make decisions, we can adopt behaviors that are ethical or that are immoral. We can be pleasing in God's sight, or we can seek to reject every decent and moral principle. That's our choice. God does not treat us like puppets. God does not treat us like characters on a video game. God gives us the space to be free moral agents. And as a consequence, we've got to understand that much of the evil that we experience in the world is a consequence of what humans create. The reality is, humans start war. Humans oppress other people. Humans pollute our ecosystems and cause there to be strange chemicals in our food. Humans allow there to be a pollution of water in Flint, Michigan. It's humans that exercise racism and classism and misogyny and homophobia. Those are not evils that God has created. That's stuff we have done. So you got to be careful placing the blame for evil at the feet of God. And you've also got to be careful in expecting God to clean up every mess that humanity has created. Did you hear what I said? Because isn't it interesting how we'll get mad that there's so much evil in the world, but it's often evil that we have created, and we'll create the evil and then we'll expect God to clean it up. It's like some of us do in our own personal lives. We create the mess, and then when we just can't go no further, when we can't do anything else about it, we expect God to swoop in and undo what we've messed up. Sometimes you've got to deal with the consequences of your own craziness. It is here that I hear an atheist object. Now, the atheist says, if it is true that God exists, and God, as you say, is a good God, then where is God in the face of the evil of the world? To which my response would be the response given by Elie Wiesel, that famed writer who survived the Jewish Holocaust. And he published a memoir entitled Night. And in that memoir, Night, some of you have already read it, he recounts one day when drugged through the concentration camps, was a little boy. The little boy was being taken to the gallows where his life would be taken. The boy kicked and screamed as he moved toward the gallows. All the prisoners, thousands of them, saw this horrid sight. And as people cried out in pain at the torture that this little boy was about to experience, people began to ask, where is God now? If God is merciful, where is God? As that little boy was placed on the gallows, on that guillotine, they began to ask louder, where is God now? If God is merciful, why doesn't he have mercy on that little boy? Because if anyone shouldn't suffer, it should be that little boy. Where is God? And finally a voice cried out, God is right there, hanging on the gallows. It paints for us an important picture of how where God places himself in the moment that we experience suffering and evil. That when you are face to face with evil, when you experience suffering, that God is not way up there, detached from your situation. But when you are dealing with the evil of the world and the suffering and pain of our reality, God doesn't stay away, but God gets right in it, in the midst of it with us, and he sticks right there even through it. God does not leave us to face suffering and evil all alone. That's why Lowell said that truth may be forever on the scaffold and wrong may be forever on the throne, but behind the dim unknown stands God who takes care of his very own. The truth is this, that no matter what you're going through, God is right there with you in it. Maybe that's God's word for somebody here today. I just need to tell you, God has not forsaken you. God is right by your side. God promises never to leave you and never to forsake you. I wish there was somebody who could testify. I've seen the lightning flash. I've heard the thunder roll. I've seen breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But yet I've heard the voice of Jesus say, telling me, still fight on, because he's promised never to leave me. Never to leave me alone. In the face of evil, God does not leave us. But atheists say that it is precisely evil that is an argument against the existence of God. But then they have another principle, and the second principle is this, that God cannot exist because of what natural science reveals about the world. The argument goes that God and religion were used by primitive, unsophisticated societies of people to explain how the world around them came into existence. It's a good argument. Only problem is that argument doesn't stand up to the empirical standard that science has set for himself. For although science explains how the world came into being, it still cannot explain how the world came into being. I'll prove it.
Burnett Avenue is located at 6800 South Hurstbourne Parkway in Louisville, Kentucky. Join us for Sunday worship at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., and 12 noon. Saturday service is at 6 p.m. and midweek Bible study Wednesdays at 7 p.m. For more information, give us a call at 491-8301.